Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm Barb Higgins, chairperson of the Instructional Committee. And before I say anything else, it's just such a good, normal thing to look out into an auditorium and see an actual audience. And I'm not surprised. It's typically athletics or band or theater that make all the parents come in. So thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it quite a bit. So what I'm going to do, this is our Instructional Committee meeting. We have several school board members here in person, several members currently remote. So I'm going to take quick attendance so I know who is here for committee members and who is here for board members, and then we'll get started. So, Gina, are you here?
I am, and I am alone.
Thank you. David Parker, are you here?
Yes, I am. I'm here. I'm alone.
Thank you. Danielle Smith.
I'm here and I'm alone.
Hi, Danielle. Okay, and I'm here in person, so that's our committee, the Instructional Committee. So I'm just going to go through other board members to see who all is here. So I'm looking out behind me. I see Tom Croto. Next to me, I see Liza. In the audience, I see Jim and Pam. Chuck Crush, are you here?
I'm here via telephone and I'm alone.
Thank you. Excellent. So we have a full board participation in this meeting. I will stress ahead of time, this is the Instructional Committee. Anything that we take a vote on tonight is a recommendation. Anything approved, athletics, schooling, anything that we approve as a board has to be approved by the whole board. And so that meeting will be set as soon as possible once we get through tonight. So we're going to do a couple of things, a couple of sort of normal business things first. And then we'll talk about winter sports. So the first thing I'd like to do is invite Kathleen to share our school calendar for next year. And this might not seem like a big deal right now, but a lot of things hinge on when we start school, when we finish, when we're in, and those sorts of things. So Kathleen, thank you. No? I wonder.
Thanks, Jim. Well, thank you. I won't take a lot of time, but every year, annually, you have to approve the school calendar, so you'll make a recommendation, and that will go to the full board at their December meeting, December 7th, Monday, December 7th, 7 o'clock here.
Great.
And in front of you, you have a copy of the calendar that I'm proposing this evening. This calendar was developed with our administrative council, our principals, the Teachers Association. We met with them to review the calendar, and everyone made suggestions, and that's how it's developed. Pretty typical calendar, typical to what you've had in years past. I am proposing that we begin on August 30 and 31st with 2 teacher professional development days in preparation for the new school year. Hopefully it's not like this school year. Yeah. And the first day of school for our students will be on September 1. Other than that, there are no other changes in that. Of course, there's a long holiday weekend there in September with the Labor Day weekend. Traditionally, you've always had that Friday, Monday that gives families sort of the last hurrah, if you will, for the summer before the youngsters come back full time. In October, you'll see that there's a workshop day, a professional development day on October 8th. Traditionally, you've had that. That's also the state NEA convention, which many of our teachers attend because they have a variety of workshops. Monday is let's see, 8th, 9th, Indigenous Peoples Day.
Yeah, that's the 11th.
On the 8th. Let's see, let's go on. In November, as you recall, at the City School Board Relations Committee meeting that they do annually, the City Council asked us to consider continuing to have Election Day as a day that the buildings are closed. I think that there's a desire to use the school buildings as a site for voting. This year, as you know, Broken Ground as well as Abbott Downing were used for the national election. Now, every election isn't probably have as many voters out, but they feel that these are really good sites for our community to use for voting. And of course, our school district wants to be good partners with the city. So I'm recommending that you do that and use your facilities as the city needs, and that we would do a professional development day on that day with our teachers. They would still work that day. Our students would be out. On November, of course, you have your holiday, Thanksgiving holiday. December, pretty straightforward. You would be getting out for your holiday break. December break on the 22nd. We would continue to go right through till January 4th. The 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th is Martin Luther King in January. Now, traditionally, you've had a workshop day in January on the 31st, but because I'm using the November one instead, we're trading off. So that's one change in the schedule that would be different from previous years.
Nice.
February vacation break, the last week in February. It doesn't coincide with other states, which always is a problem for people when they're taking flights or they want to go skiing. So February vacation is the last week. March, again, you've always had a March. I think it's a good time to have a professional development day for your teachers on the 18th. April vacation, last week in April. May is just the only holiday would be the Memorial Day holiday, and the last day of school would be the 16th. This calendar meets your requirements for your teacher contract of 183 days. It also meets the requirements for students' time on task, 990 hours for the high school, 945 for the elementary school, and those days and hours all meet that requirement, which we must meet. The commissioner is pretty strict about that, and I agree. I think there's nothing like kids being in school, so yeah. We want them here. So I'll take any questions.
I'm sorry. Gina, go ahead. I can't look at Virginia, you're Gina. Okay.
Sorry. So I'm still new to all of this, being my first year. What is exactly a curriculum work time? I'm not against it. I just wonder what it is.
So those are days that have been planned out with the staff. They're after school. They go. I'm gonna lean to Donna here because Donna's. Yeah, it's 90 minutes at the end of the day. Students have gone home. Teachers are expected to work. If you get out at 3 o'clock, you would work until 5:30. 4:30. I'm sorry. Nice if I could add right. 90 minutes, so 3 o'clock to 4:30.
Nice. Thank you, Gina. One comment I'll make that I like, I fully support Election Day as being a day off. I think schools are great places for voting to occur for two reasons. They're well laid out, lots of parking. It's also a nice teaching tool for our kids to know that their schools are being used in a civic manner. So with the kids off, making this a PD day is sort of a 2-in-1 win. Kids aren't now missing another day so that teachers can have a professional development day. So from the parent perspective, it's one less day that kids are home because of professional development. They're home because of Election Day. So I like that change. And also as a teacher, a lot of professional development earlier in the year is sometimes easier and more effective. You can implement what you learn over a long period of time. So that's a nice change. I appreciate it. Does anyone else have a comment or question about the calendar? So from one of my committee members online there, could someone make a motion that we recommend to the board to approve the calendar?
Can I ask a question before we do the motion, Barb?
Sure.
So on the 2nd, during professional day, the professional development, is there going to be a specific time and or staggered times for teachers to be able to vote if that's their district or whatever?
That's a great question. And the polls are open in Concord till 8 o'clock. And most districts, I know my district is 7 to 8. So I always do it before I go into work. I think the day starts the day is 8 to 3. So that gives them plenty of time to get out to vote.
I just want to make sure our teachers are able to vote too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Tom?
You all set, Gina? So
I am.
you'd think after all these years I'd know the answer to this question, but I don't. Has this been approved or at least accepted by all of the negotiating units that we talk with? And this is where we go from here.
I really spent most of my time with the Teachers Association. They gave me their input.
Perfect. Thank you.
And I can't imagine anyone being penalized for voting, quite honestly. Are there any other questions or comments?
No, you were asking for a motion?
Yes, so the motion would be to recommend to the full board that we approve the 21-22 calendar as presented.
I would so move.
And do
I'll
we have-
second it.
Thank you. So moved by Gina, seconded by David. Okay, so only the instructional committee members need to vote here. So Gina,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Danielle,
Aye.
and I say aye. So the motion passes. So Superintendent Murphy, we can bring this to the December meeting and present it there.
That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. I want to talk a little bit. You asked me to look into a plan to address remote learners. We had some requests from families that wanted to switch from hybrid to remote. We had set a date of mid-January, but we worked on that since the meeting on Thursday night to try to present a plan to you that provides that option for our parents. And we've really worked hard to try to give our parents option. We think that's really important. So I'm going to ask Donna to just kind of brief the plan to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe I'll just do it from here. So the principals sent out letters to their families. We're talking about K-5 because the middle school and high school have an ongoing opportunity for moving to remote that's been working there. We've asked families to let us know by Friday, this Friday, so it's only Wednesday, so we're still waiting to hear. But as of today, we had 12, this is with 4 buildings reporting, 4 out of the 5 buildings reporting. We had 12 requests to move from hybrid to remote and 6 possibles, so people who are still thinking. And we had 2 requests to move to, 1 request to move to hybrid and 1 possible move to hybrid. The principals are meeting Friday morning to process all of the requests, and it looks to us like, as we look across the remote classrooms that we have at the elementary, that we feel, again, it's only Wednesday, but based on this, unless we get lots and lots and lots more, we feel like we can have a pretty quick turnaround to meet these expectations. We're still holding out the possibility that we might have to get another teacher or 2, but for right now and Wednesday, we're feeling fairly confident that we're in a good place.
Wonderful. And these families understand the logistics, potential teacher changes, and classroom changes?
Yes, they were told and asked to consider that they would have to move teachers. That would be a given, actually.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Danielle, sorry, I have to turn way around to see you.
Okay. What about the 6th grade at Runlet? I was under the impression that they had their own sort of cluster for remote kids. So if you're not in that cluster, how would that work?
They did, but Paulette is working that out and had already started to do that. So they seem like they're moving forward on a plan that may be like the rest of the 7 through 12 that involves some zooming in to those classes. So that's been going on for a bit now.
Okay, thanks.
Liza.
Okay, Liza, you're next. Thank you.
Nope.
No. What about the one behind you? There you go.
For the students who are choosing to change formats between Thanksgiving and mid-January, and there's probably not a single answer to this, are they returning to their original setup after that time period? or are they staying in their new format until further notice?
Yeah, they're staying in they're where they are right now.
They're going to stay?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
They're going to stay in whatever...
Once they move, we want them to stay where they are,
Okay.
once they move.
I'm going to repeat that for the benefit of the people watching at
Yes,
home.
thank
So if you choose to change formats, you're choosing for the long term. You're not choosing just for that period in between Thanksgiving. And the reason I wanted to say it twice is that there may be people who want to quarantine after Thanksgiving to be safe through the December holidays, but just wanted to say that.
I think those staying home choices would be handled in the way they're handled now when kids have to stay home. The hybrid teacher would put together work and set up a plan of communication.
Thank you, Barb. So
Okay.
if a person has to quarantine, that's different.
Right.
These were requests for, I want to now change my instructional model. But if you have to quarantine, that's, as we talked about last time, contact the principal, work out that specific need for that 10 days, 7 days, 8 days, whatever the time ends up being.
Thank you. Hold on to that mic, because I also would love for you to repeat for the middle school and high school families what they should do if they want to change.
So they should continue to contact their principal, Mr. Reardon or Ms. Fitzgerald, to talk about a change that they're looking for in any grade 6 through 12.
Thank you.
So I think that's a great segue to my next piece, in that, as you know, we've been collecting data all week. Oops, I'm sorry.
I know you said that you thought you would might have to add a teacher or two. Are you capping the classes at a certain size, or capping the number of children who might be transitioning into one class, so it's not?
So that's why the principals will get together. They have a very big spreadsheet about all of this, and they're going to move students to fill classes that still have ability to fill. We have class size guidelines, so we would still always stay within those class size guidelines, and we'll try to make sure it's as even as we can get it. And again, it's only Wednesday, so I don't want to get ahead of myself in terms of how many requests there'll be, but that's how we'll do it as we work through this.
So I'll try that again. That's a perfect segue to my comments about next steps. As you know, we've been collecting data. What is it going to look like? What are our resources available? What's the status with the number of families that are traveling, that students will need to be quarantined for the period of time if they traveled? And or if there were gatherings and then all of a sudden they find out that somebody tested positive. All of those things are happening here all around us. And so tonight I'd like to, for your consideration, I'd like to recommend that our high school and our middle school on November 30th go to full remote. And that remote would look like what it looked like in the fall. Is synchronous learning, the face-to-face with youngsters on schedules at both of the schools. We, after surveying families, realizing the numbers at that level that were traveling for whatever reasons, and there were a lot of them, that we felt that it was important. And we do, as you know, have to honor those teachers that have specific reasons for being remote to begin with, because of a FMLA or whether it's an ADA medical reason. So with all of that, we are recommending that our middle school and our high school return to the remote from the period of November 30th through January 18th. They would return back to hybrid on the 19th. If the data and everything shows that it's okay. I mean, we'll make that decision. Every single day we make decisions. every day the circumstances are different, and the numbers are different, and what's happening around us, what's happening everywhere. So we're staying on top of it, and we will continue to monitor that. But right now, given those travels, we feel at that level it's best that we have remote learning for those youngsters.
So as I recall in our lengthy discussions last week, this potential issue was discussed and brought up. So I have sort of a technical question. Do we as a committee, and I'm looking at Jim and Tom, but do we as a committee need to recommend for a full vote, or is this something that, I mean, this is a logical numbers decision. It's not like someone decided we should do this. The numbers are dictating that these two buildings go remote. I don't know that, I just don't want to assume anything and get myself in trouble. So is this something that the committee can acknowledge, or do we need to vote to say yes and then go to full board? I just need some backup here. Jim, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I believe from the motion that passed last week that we qualified that they had to be able to maintain the quarantine after travel, and if there is not enough teachers for the superintendent to be able to run the middle school and high school, I don't believe we need to vote. She needs to make that call. I think we already authorized her to do that, and if that's the requirement between now and, well, whatever period that is, I don't believe we need to have a vote. I think it's just an information item, and she just needs to tell us.
Right.
But Mr. Croto, if you want to jump in, you're more than welcome to.
I do. As I understood Superintendent Murphy, it sounded as if to me, sitting here right now, that you wanted to do this regardless on November 30th, regardless of whether or not we had enough teachers to field the team or not. Was that your intent, or did I mishear it, or?
My issue is the number of students traveling with families and all the holiday gatherings at Thanksgiving. We saw what happened with voting day and Halloween, and we saw the results of that. We've had a terrific spike, although it's come down, as you know. The anticipation of that with that group, and given the number of staff that are out on FMLA, ADA, because of their own family restrictions, I feel that we would be unable to be able to deliver hybrid to our students.
Okay. So, Mr. Richards, does that fall in line with what you?
I think so. I think we authorized her that if she could not provide for the education of those, with the number of people that were out, that we would have to go remote for that period until the time came up that we would be able to change back and to be in a full hybrid mode.
We have all board members here. David, I see your hand up, so I'd love to hear from you.
Yes, thank you. I understand what Jim's saying, and I also understand that at all times we vote on things, I think, given the facts that are before us and the information that we have with ultimately the concern of all the students and their safety. And so, on the other hand, I think that as we're presented with new information, as a board or as a committee, I don't have a problem voting on this to establish within the community that we took new information, we listened to it, and we responded accordingly. We're not, relying on previous information, even though I agree that that was part of the deal. But I definitely could go either way with this, but I think I want the message to be clear that we're supporting this overall because of the information that we're getting. We're dealing with facts. This situation is going to continue to surface throughout the school year, and I think we have to be able to support quality decisions and take ownership for it. So thank you.
Hey, Barb, it's Chuck. When it's appropriate, can you call on me? I'm on the phone, so I can't really.
Yeah,
raise my
why
hand.
don't you go next? No one else has their hand up, so go for it.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't want to interrupt any other member, but I'm kind of at a slight disadvantage.
Yeah.
So I have a couple questions or clarification. So my first question is, what is our plan and what's the criteria of providing for those students, the vulnerable students that we always talk about at Runlet and at the high school during that time period? What's the plan? What's the criteria for those students to be classified as vulnerable? And do we have this? And do we have the staff to meet their needs? And how are we going to do that? And if we don't, do we have an alternative plan? My second question is, at what point, because I'm still a little confused because, last week we were feeling better, the numbers continue to go up. At what point does this affect the elementary schools? Because I'm not sure that we are following the matrix.
We lost you there.
So let me try to answer some of the questions, and hopefully Chuck can come back on. Those were great questions, of course. The first is that we would maintain the same schedule that we did in the fall, and as you know, we provided for those students who needed the kinds of extra support with our teachers. Now, again, it's going to depend on the resources available to me. If I have teachers that are in quarantine for whatever reasons now, for their own health or whatever, I may not be able to deliver that. So we can use substitutes, and we will, but that's not the same as the teachers that provide those services. But we will continue at the middle and the high school with providing in-house support for those youngsters. I'm also supporting CRTC, and that those activities at CRTC continue. I've got a message from Steve today indicating to me that he is a go with all of his teachers. So he's ready to go with them from November 30 through the remote session. So I want to provide for the vulnerable students and at-risk students that need to be with us. Otherwise, we don't see them, we don't hear from them, and it's very difficult. So we want to continue to do that to the best we can. There comes a point where sometimes it can't be. We do know that we would be responsible if we were not able to meet IEPs, that we would have to provide compensatory education, and that's something that our special ed director, Bob Beaumont, would work with the families and the IEP team to provide that service if, in fact, we can't meet the goals of the IEP. And that did happen, as you know, in the spring. We were unable to do that. But we also know that I talked with the paras as well as the Teachers Association today, and we know that there's staff that want to come in and do that. So I'm going to have to keep you updated on that one. I'm trying to think what else Chuck asked.
Chuck, if you can hear me, my interpretation as a special ed teacher and someone that's spent a better part of this afternoon looking at the governor's sort of, order that we provide for these students is that if there were a hybrid special educator or a hybrid ELL teacher or a CRTC teacher who needed to quarantine, then the flexibility would be within that teacher and those students to have arrangements made to either still receive their in-school instruction or do it remotely. So it isn't a blanket. Because the December remote piece is staff contingent, not COVID number contingent, it's based on quarantine and the ability to have enough people in the building. That seems a fluid question. We have to assume our responsibility is to provide an education for these kids here in the building. So that is probably something that will unfold as the days come.
Right. And we know that we experience some students who the remote youngster with an IEP or an ELL student or at-risk student, the remote wasn't effective. It was not effective for learning for those youngsters. We need to meet with them. There may be multiple issues that we need to address with that student, and that includes OT and PT and, I don't know how you do PT remotely, and even OT, although they do a great job. I've seen some of the things they've done, and they're amazing, but there are some youngsters that we have to have.
Okay, I'm going to go with Tom, and then Gina, and then David.
So Kathleen, what would be your, given that we know there are a ton of kids out there and teachers and others, parents, who would need to know what the date would be that you would make the decision to stop the high school and middle school or move them to full remote on November 30th. What date is your target date right now?
For moving the youngsters
For
remote?
going to remote for the high school and middle school.
Right,
Would you say that
November
is,
30.
Pardon me?
November 30, right after.
So you're saying right now that people can prepare that that's going to happen
That's
on
correct.
November 30th?
That's correct. On November 30th.
Perfect. Thank
High
you.
school and middle school will go remote. Now, I want to answer Chuck's question about elementary. It's a little different. Amazingly, it's the way it is. We had less families traveling. So we know we're not going to have, hopefully, not as many youngsters in any kind of quarantine situation. Same with the staff. So we met with the elementary principals, and they were adamant about it, that they want, and many of the teachers want to have the youngsters in school. It's so difficult, and I said this last time, how do you teach phonics and comprehension and all the early learning skills that our youngsters do in the elementary school, and have them in the classroom? I've been out in the buildings observing those classrooms, and I know it's in hybrid, and I know it's only 2 days, but what they're accomplishing with that face-to-face time has been really good. So we would like to continue with hybrid in elementary school right up through December 22nd, which is the day they released for their winter holiday, right, time. And then when they come back from the holiday, they would go into remote with everyone else for those 2 weeks, just as your motion was on Thursday night, that because of the holiday and not having to decide about everybody's travel and all of that, families and where everybody was, that we would do a 2-week, which would be the 10 days, through the January 18th, and then we would return to hybrid. If the numbers are right. I keep saying that. Please understand, it changes so frequently.
Well, I would imagine, right, that the December piece, where they remain hybrid right through, we agree on this, understanding that you could make a call that we're suddenly unbelievably short-staffed, or we've had this or that happen and we'll go to remote. And which is, I think, what we're doing right now with middle and high school. I don't feel like we're making a new decision. I think we're acting upon a contingency that we planned ahead for. Okay.
Right.
Oh, Jim, I had forgotten about you, so yeah.
I just wanted to clarify with regards to Mr. Parker's questions. I believe that the superintendent has just described that we are going remote because of quarantine, which is all part of the COVID, and she has, we gave her that option to make that call because we want the schools to remain safe. If Mr. Parker would want to vote, we cannot vote as a board, even though many of us are here tonight. We cannot vote tonight because this is not a published board meeting or advertised. We have to post that in advance. However, we could schedule an emergency meeting next week should we decide that at least your committee, since this is your committee meeting, decide that you need the full board's vote to authorize this action. So that's all I wanted to say, Chairperson.
Okay, Gina and then David. Takes forever for the remote. Oh. Can't hear you, Gina. I don't see the mute button on, but I can't hear you. We can't hear you.
I was letting Chuck go. He was able to call back in.
Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, Chuck, keep going.
No, can you, all I was calling back in is to see if you could hear me. That was my only point I was making, because I got disconnected.
So did both of you, were you able to listen to the responses to your questions? Do you need clarification or anything else?
Just a quick clarification of the elementary education part. At what point, and thank Kathleen for the follow-up, but just briefly, at what point would we, make decisions regarding the elementary schools?
So I'm recommending that we stay in hybrid right straight through till December 22nd with our elementary. But as you know, it's critically important that if things are changing, and they change quickly, that I get out to the parents as quickly as possible. I mean, there's a challenge finding families are working, right? And so finding appropriate daycare and help when that is difficult for these families. So I know that. I recognize that. I realize the stresses and the anxieties of families during this pandemic. And I would get out to them as soon as I can, Chuck. I haven't set a date, but again, I feel like our elementary schools have been safe havens. Even this afternoon, Dr. Chan, in his closing remarks, told us that one of the safest places is in our schools. They have the lowest numbers, and they're all in the very minimal transmission of the virus. So I'll try to do my best to keep everybody clued in, Chuck, about what's the next steps.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Gina, were you just clarifying for Chuck, or do you have a question as well?
No, I had a question I wanted to ask for some clarification. So high school and middle school are going to go remote as of November 30th, and the elementary schools are still going to remain in hybrid for those students who have chosen hybrid. I just wanted to clarify for people who are listening that elementary school students who are traveling for Thanksgiving still need to quarantine and contact their school principals when they return. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
They will not be expected to go in and exclude themselves from quarantine.
No, those are the students, Gina, I believe, that would arrange with the principals of their buildings. Those families would get with the principals to have work sent home so they could keep up with their classes while quarantining, but not be left behind or left out. Is that correct, Kathleen and Don?
Yes, and remember, it's the travel outside of New England. That's the rule in New Hampshire. So if, I've heard people say, well, I'm going to Rhode Island. Well, that's in New England, so there's no, need to quarantine. It's only if you go outside. And, that is part of the questions that we ask the kids when they come into school in the morning. You know how we do that screening? And it's all in there, so.
I just wanted to clarify for those people that are listening.
No, that's good. Thank you, Gina. I appreciate it. Okay, David.
I realized, my comments were contingent on a new vote from the board. I withdraw that and would be glad to move forward with our previous vote, given the fact that we're responding to what Kathleen proposed before. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you, David. Does anyone else have anything? Any other board members here or online? All right, so I think in summary, Kathleen, I think this is where we are. You've acted very quickly and responsibly to look at staffing issues to make this decision. I think that following a September protocol with CRTC, ELL, and special ed makes sense right now. All of those things are contingent, of course, upon staffing and people that need to quarantine. So that eases my mind as a parent and a teacher and a board member. And I also want to acknowledge that the plan would be to act in the same manner should issues arise at elementary schools. That's basically it.
Correct.
Okay.
Maybe this is the superintendent's next item, but I think that we still have sort of, it appears we're operating under the staffing is strained portion of the state school matrix, and I just want to continue that conversation for parents who are choosing whether or not they're going to move remote at the end of this week. I've heard from some who want to understand what the criteria is on COVID cases for removing remote for elementary schools.
Oh, when we officially go from hybrid to remote?
Yes.
Excuse me, this is Lyndon. Could the person who just spoke please identify herself?
Sure, it's Pamela Walsh.
Thank you, Pamela.
So I think you addressed this before, but maybe repeat it again.
Yeah, well, it was on the agenda, and it's the matrix.
Oh.
You know, I'm almost afraid to say the word lately, but it was a tool. It was a guidance document for me to use, and we know that. We were strained in the staffing. We knew that. And honestly, the staff has been fabulous about making it work, and it has, so that we could be with the kids, whether it was remote or hybrid. So I can't say enough about that. But then we got these numbers that just, really climbed very quickly, so that we put us in a position where we were well over the 100. You remember that was the sort of the mark. I think today it was 278 in Merrimack County. Now I look at Merrimack County. I didn't look at statewide. I think we're less than the state. But so everybody wants to know what are the criteria. And the issue for us, even with the strain and even with the COVID around us, it was the low numbers that happen in our schools. It was no transmission. And people have challenged me on that, and I understand that. How do I know that? How do you know that? Well, the only way I know that is that no one else who may have tested positive, no one else around them who may have had contact tested positive. So I know that we're not. And I've seen clusters in other schools. I've had superintendents tell me that they had 2 or 3 youngsters, all positive, all, in the same group. We have not experienced that. I told you last week I attribute it to protocols, and that the protocols are in place. Are they perfect? Are they perfect every day? Do we have somebody who wears their mask inappropriately on occasion? Yes, and we correct them. But because of that, I was using that data, and it was a guidance document. We went back to the state and how they wanted us to use it. I went back and did some research, and it was asking us to make decisions based on what was happening in our community and our local schools. So I wasn't looking at statewide or even Merrimack Valley. I know initially, they had some nursing home that caused the numbers to go up. That isn't the case so much now, but initially that was one of the reasons why I didn't worry about the numbers. But so I was using local numbers, looking at Concord schools. What's happening with our kids and our families, and that's why I made the decision. I tried to go back and redo the matrix for you tonight, and let me tell you, there's no way around it. I mean, I looked at the state model, I looked at other models. They're all the same. They're models, they're guidance documents, and they help us to make those decisions that we think are appropriate for the kids. So I'm going to continue to work on it because I think parents want a black and white answer on that, and that's been very difficult. I will tell you today, the answers are in the gray. There's so many variables that impact that decision. It's not just one number or one event. If that were the case, we'd have been closed all year.
Right.
And I don't think that's what everybody wanted. And I have to say that I don't think that's what our students wanted either, by the way, and that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question,
Chuck,
Pam.
1 second, Chuck. Continue, Pamela. Finish.
Thank you.
So the state has a criteria that even if community transmission is substantial, if we're in school transmission is low with sporadic cases, absenteeism due to illness below 15%, and normal staffing availability, you can stay in hybrid. Does that matrix that the state have not work for us?
I think it was dependent on staff.
Well, that's one of their criteria.
That is one of their criteria, but our staff was always, we were strained, and just not for any reason other than their own the things that impacted them personally, like ADA and FMLA. And so because of that and the substantial numbers, it drives you over to remote.
But for the elementary schools, I mean, I think can be done
Good
on
point.
a school
Good
by
point.
school
Right.
basis. I mean, it sounds like this is the matrix we're using, and that's what people want to know.
Right. If we shift this matrix to an individual school by school, then we could do that. You're absolutely right. We've been looking at it as a guidance document for all of our schools, and that's the difference.
I did just want to say, Pam, because I understand what you're asking, that upper right-hand box for the states says hybrid, and they have 3 levels. They have if you're full in person, if you're hybrid, or if you're remote. And so when we first put out that guidance around the matrix, we took an extremely conservative view. And so we put remote in that far upper right box. We did. We went very conservative there, where the state has hybrid there. But the state's guidance is clear that hybrid is appropriate there for the elementary schools where we're not strained in the same way we are at the middle and high school. I just wanted to respond to what you were saying, because I understand that.
Pamela, does that, as best as it can, satisfy? Yeah. Yeah.
I like this.
That's what we're using.
Right. Yeah, it sounds that's a pretty accurate description of us right now.
I like the suggestion that we look at it school by school. And so let us go back and continue to, put together something that I think will help the families. I think that's what they want, but it has to be school by school, and you have to dive down that deep. You can't do it generally for the whole district, which is what I was doing.
Okay, Chuck, you're waiting to ask a question, correct?
I am, yes.
All right, go for it.
Thank you. So my question is, at the elementary level, how many families are awaiting a decision if they can switch from hybrid to remote or remote to hybrid? How many are pending, based upon emails and things like that sent out? So do we have a sense, and when are the decisions going to be made?
Yeah, so we had talked about this a little bit earlier, but so it's only Wednesday. The notice went out to parents on Sunday or Monday. I think some people sent it Sunday, some Monday, first thing. Today, as of Wednesday, we have 12 requests. This is from 4 schools reporting so far. Of the 5, we have 12 requests to move from hybrid to remote. We have 6 people who have said they are considering it. They haven't decided yet, but they wanted to register that they were considering. We have 1 request for move from remote to hybrid and 1 possible move from remote to hybrid. So we have 1 more school to weigh in, and it's only Wednesday night, so we have a couple more days because folks were asked to let us know by Friday. The principals are meeting on Friday to look at their spreadsheet. That includes all of the classes, their current population, whether they're hybrid or remote, by grade level, by school, so that we can make the moves for those folks who are asking. Right now, it looks like it could be 20 or 25, depending on what this other school brings in. Right now, there are 18 with the possibles and the requests. And we have low numbers in some of our remote classrooms. So we are hopeful at this moment that we can make those switches pretty quickly. We'll know on Friday.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Donna. That's good, yeah. Okay, thank you for all that input. This is important and not easy conversations to have, and I appreciate the different perspectives. It creates a nice, well-rounded picture of what we need to do. So next on our agenda, and actually a pretty big piece of tonight based on our participants, is to talk about winter athletics and co-curricular activities and how we plan to incorporate these safely into our school district. So I don't have a specific agenda on who speaks first and all, so I would leave that up to Mr. Reardon and Mr. Mello and the plethora of people here.
Good evening, everyone. So Athletic Director Mello and I are going to talk about why we think maintaining winter sports is a necessity. Before I begin, I think the committee would be pleased to hear that while we were on the previous issue, I received a text from the Guinness Book of World Records people, and they had just heard that our superintendent was recommending that the high school close, so that we have been nominated for having the worst possible timing for doing this type of a presentation. I'll let you all know how that goes, how that comes out as we get more news.
Oh, God.
So I'm going to go through 7 reasons why I think that this is important and vital that we maintain winter sports, and then Steve is going to talk about the actual detailed plan, and then we'll answer your questions. So first of all, this idea about it not being very good timing, actually it's just the opposite. The fact that the high school is going to go remote for a while makes it all the more important that we maintain our students' connection to the school, to each other, to the community. What we're talking about is safety. Everybody understands that. Everybody is justifiably freaked out about the COVID-19 virus. There's another type of safety we need to think about, and that's the emotional well-being of our students. If we think that saying that we're not going to have in-person school and that we're not going to have co-curricular events is going to keep them safe overall, we're delusional. We have to keep those connections. These are adolescents. They can't stay home and not interact. It's a huge part of their education. It's a huge part of their identity. So that's number one. Number two, for a lot of these young men and women, sports and clubs and organizations are their main connection to school. I'm going to give you a quick example. I had an extended conversation this afternoon with a mother whose daughter is struggling at Concord High School. A lot of different issues. In the course of that discussion, I asked the mom whether her daughter was connected to any clubs or organizations. She said, not surprisingly, that she wasn't. I said, what does she like to do? She said she's interested in drama. So I don't even have to tell you the rest of the story. She and I are going to talk this week. I'm going to march her over and introduce her to Mr. Close. And what's going to happen then? She's going to be introduced to a whole different set of friends and acquaintances and activities and ways of learning. Which brings me to one of my most important points, number 3. Those of us of a certain age will remember when sports in clubs and organizations were called extracurricular activities. Some very insightful person a while back changed that to co-curricular activities. Why? What does it imply? It implies that you can learn as much on the playing field or on the cheer team or in student government as you can learn in your English or math class. You're learning in different ways. What these kids are experiencing right now is chaos. Let's be frank. Everything is up in the air for them right now. When they go on the basketball court or the hockey rink or whatever, or the wrestling mat, what are they learning? They're learning that they're working within a certain set of rules that they acknowledge and embrace. They're learning about commitment and discipline and how hard work leads to achievement. These are all vital lessons that are just as important as learning about civics or learning about literature or communication. And those things that I just mentioned have made up most of my life. Number 4, they're going to play anyway. This afternoon, Athletic Director Mello showed me by the way, do we have basketball players here? Okay. He showed me a video that he had of most of our boys basketball team playing somewhere in town in a league. None of them had masks on. None of the people in the stands had masks on. If they're playing in our programs, they're going to follow the rules that we've established and that we expect. Number 5, in the regard that I was just talking about following the rules, the athletic program in all its manifestations, in all its sports, proved itself this fall. They ran their skills and drills for a long time. They ran their abbreviated schedule. There were 0 incidents. Now, when I say that, I'm not suggesting that every minute is 100%, that kids are socially distanced all the time. Of course they're not. But they're masked. They have adults who are supervising them and keeping them safe. And they're doing the learning I was talking about a little while ago. Number 6, we're talking about, again, an abbreviated schedule. Skills and drills, and Steve will talk about this in a minute. We're talking about skills and drills up through January, and an abbreviated schedule in January. You know, basketball has a notoriously long season. That's not going to be the case anymore. But keeping our students focused and occupied and interacting and safe, and remember, we're using safe in its broadest context, not just squirreling away from the virus, but also maintaining a healthy social interactions and controlled interactions. And 7, and I guess this almost goes without saying, if this isn't working, we're going to shut it down. If there are clusters, if there are violations of our safety expectations, we're going to shut it down. But these kids are committed. They are passionate. If we were discussing the social studies curriculum, we wouldn't have these seats filled tonight. They're committed to what they do. They're going to follow the rules, and they're going to, most importantly, continue to learn and continue to grow. We cannot just send them home and hope for the best, because when they come back, they're not going to be in good shape. This has been going on for a long time. We all know about COVID fatigue. These are 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old adolescents. They need to be occupied in a safe and educational atmosphere. Now, for them, for their traditional academics, that's going to be staring at a screen for a long time. They need this part of their education, too. In closing, I will simply say I want to acknowledge the difficult position all of you are in. I said the same thing to Kathleen and Donna in our meeting this afternoon. But this is important. This is really important. And I know that you're going to give it due consideration. Your decision to support winter athletics is your decision to support these young men and women. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Mr. Reardon.
Thanks, Mike. I don't know if you ever coached anything, but you might have missed your calling, because I'm pretty fired up right now. I am inspired. I don't know about the rest of you folks. Mike did a spectacular job outlaying the big picture of what athletics means to our students. In the fall, we ventured to partner with our families and our community, and I'm not surprised that our students were spectacular. Mike mentioned we made it through the whole fall season. I remember zooming into this meeting, people saying, how could you possibly play soccer? How could you possibly play volleyball? Well, in no small part to some of the kids you see here today and the dedicated staff that we have, we did it. We did it. It wasn't without episode, and it wasn't without some anxious moments, but we did the right thing. Athletics is...
Can you just introduce yourself? I've had a couple of people text who's talking right now.
Must be the mask, Barb. Steve Mello, Director of Physical Education and Sport.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah. It's not without risk. If anything, I tend to be extraordinarily forthcoming, but I do believe they're safer with us. Mike mentioned that they're going to play anyway, and that, you know, that's one of those, if everybody was jumping off a bridge, would you jump too? No, but if I had a safer bridge, I would take that one. We have strict guidelines. Our plan is detailed. It's excellent. I believe we've controlled everything we can possibly control. We obviously can't control the virus and things that we can't control. If you've had a chance to look, we're proud of that document. For instance, the NHIA is actually modeling many of the things that are in our program. And as usual, I mentioned this to Barb, Concord always leads the way. And there are a lot of folks waiting to see what happens tonight and are going to use some of the work that we have done. Coaches are going to be trained, but realistically, they've already been trained to a degree. We're going to have formal trainings, but each one of them has participated in the formulation of the individual safety plans for each sport. Mike mentioned the dates. NHIA has said that preseason can start on the 14th. And from the 23rd to, I believe it's the 3rd, the first Monday after the new year, there's going to be a complete break. This is completely unusual because generally that break is full of holiday tournaments, basketball, wrestling, hockey, and it's a very busy time for us. We're actually not going to play another opponent until the 15th, the math being after the revelry of the first of the year. That's 14 days later. We're not going to play another school until the 15th. I think we've thought, we've thought out everything, and we're pretty confident with our plan. I mean, it's voluminous. Anybody has any questions, I'm certainly here to answer them. Just going back to the fall, we had between the middle school and the high school over 550 kids that we socially, emotionally took care of. And we'll have, right now we have, I think, close to 250 signed up at the high school. That's a little light. I'm hoping after tonight that we'll get a bump. I think, Scotty, what do we got? 105 at the middle school. Again, our numbers are going to be a little lighter, but that's okay. Anybody that doesn't feel like this is for them right now, no problems. We were able to accommodate people's needs and desires in the fall. We're flexible. I think the word is flexible. We're doing things we've never done before. We have people that transport their children to and from events if they're not comfortable on the bus. We have strict guidelines on the bus. We obviously maintain that strict screening process. In regards to the winter as opposed to the fall, we can actually control more things. It's tough to control Rollins Park, for instance. The rink, Coach Walsh actually works at the rink. It's like getting into Fort Knox right now. I mean, it's the safest place in Concord. They have a detailed plan that we have to follow, and we're eager to follow. Every student in an indoor sport, basketball, hockey, will be wearing a mask all the time. Wrestlers will be practicing with a mask. And right now, the only reason we haven't said that they will in competition because there's some, waiting for a little more data, a little more feedback. Hopefully somebody's going to come up with something that is safe. Right now, the Sports Medicine Committee at the NHIA is not willing to say that wrestling with a mask is a good idea. That being said, everything we can control in practice, they will be masked. Again, going back to the plan, we have cohorts, We have practice partners. We're trying to do everything we can to make it as safe as it can possibly be. Just to wrap up, and anybody who wants to get into the weeds on any of this stuff, we've been working on it for weeks. So I think between Scott and I, we can answer any question you have. We feel strongly about the responsibility of our kids. We're not comfortable as a department or as an individual, and Mike alluded to it, abdicating our responsibility to either an outside group, people we don't know, or to leave them unsupervised altogether. I think the premise that if you cancel sports, they're going to, at the end of the day, they're just going to go in the basement and read a book, I don't think that's accurate. I think they're better with us. I think our staff is incredibly committed. We haven't had anybody opt out, for instance. They would do, they obviously, Barb, you know this, they don't do it for the money. They've spent their whole life because they value the experience of these kids and the impact they can have on them. So anybody has any questions, we're happy to take any.
I'm actually going to ask a bunch that I prefaced ahead of time. So not surprisingly, as a coach for 21 years in this district and 7 years in another district, I have a lot of connections in the community with athletes, which is a good part of my life right now. So I have some technical questions, and some come from me and many come from parents who listen to their children be concerned about losing their spot on the team or being ridiculed or teased because they're not coming out and all this. So I know in the fall we had some situations. I'll go to cheering because that's such a hands-on sport, mounts and tricks and everything else, and I had a couple of families that were really, really afraid. And Scotty, your wonderful, beautiful wife, and we worked together and we made it work, and these girls had an amazing fall because their fears were acknowledged and accommodations were made that didn't single them out or make them feel ridiculed or any of that. So I look at indoor sports, and my heart breaks that there are no indoor tracks willing to host track meets this winter, because that would be my passion. But my question, I guess, is, so I'll use wrestling or I'll use basketball. Those are inside close examples. So I have a son or a daughter that wants to wrestle or play basketball, and I have some concerns over mask wearing or contact, and I want them addressed in a way that doesn't single out my child. Is this something that will continue? I mean, this was a huge thing in the fall, and I look at the indoor nature of, you're wrestling, you're like hugging someone on a mat. When you think of COVID, that's like, what are we doing? So what are some steps in place or modifications that, can someone sign up and then decide not to? Can somebody sign up and, are we willing to make accommodations that need to be made? I guess that's my question.
Absolutely. I mean, that's not COVID specific, Barb. That's what we do that every day, yeah. And we have for the last over a decade. The only reason we're here is to serve those kids. I mean, yeah. I mean, if you're going to sign up for cheerleading, you need to know what it involves, right? Yeah. There is some danger and some things, some skills that are involved. If you're going to sign up for wrestling or basketball, it is wrestling and basketball. That being said, if you're a sophomore and you want to take this year off because you're not sure, it's not going to hurt you down in the future. In the fall, I mentioned to you earlier, we're doing things that we've never done. And as a coach, you would 5 years ago, you would say, oh my God, we can't do that. For instance, if you're not in school and you're an underclassman, you can't make practice, you can't make practice. You're still going to play in the game. That's where we are. It's really about all those things Mike talked about, but it's about participation. It's about safety, and competition is probably third or fourth down the list. Right. That being said, we did win 2 state championships and 2 runner-ups in the fall. Not that that's everything, but people like it, right?
People like hearing that.
Including your cheerleaders, state runner-ups. So we can do it safe, and we can still do it well. We always accommodate to the best of our ability. Right. Anybody's problems. I respond to everybody. My coaches do the same thing. We're here to work for the students and for the parents, always.
2 other quick things. So to clarify for folks at home, December, I remember in the fall when we voted to start remote, but we voted to keep sports, we took a lot of heat for that. Like, what the heck is the school board thinking? And again, sometimes the criteria for one environment doesn't match the criteria for another. I don't get asked 50 questions before I go into a restaurant, but I do before I go into the clinic. my push here would be when school is normal and kids are in school all day, 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock is the time when bad decisions are made and bad things happen. Parents are at work, kids have nothing to do. And so I look at that as a general thought process this past fall when a lot of parents thought, oh, so soccer's more important than algebra. Well, no. Maybe they're equally important depending on the child. And so I look at winter with darkness and, mental health issues, becoming more prolific and such. So I look at the positives of this is that it's probably just as important, if not more, to have kids busy after school. So that's just sort of me commenting on from a coach perspective for parents that might be wondering, why are we even talking about this? It's a bigger piece than the in-school piece or the number of hours in a building or that sort of thing.
I would also say, Barb, you're 100% correct. It's even more important when you're in remote. I mean, they got to get out of the house. I mean, they have to. But I would also say that our cohorts are much smaller. For instance, doing things we've never done before. I'm a huge believer in older kids mentoring young kids. We're not doing that right now. I mean, we have 2 separate groups. We have smaller groups. We're going to have 15 basketball players at a time. And then it's going to be 15-minute pause for the droplets to disperse, and then the next group's coming in. We're going to have smaller sections of wrestling. JVs and varsity kids are not going at the same time. We're going to every other circle. We're controlling it to a degree that we've never done before.
And each sport, I imagine, has very specific guidelines like this to address their numbers. So basketball might not be everybody, oftentimes it was JV and varsity together. I can't see that would happen.
That's correct.
Okay.
We've had detailed conversations about how that's going to work. Yeah.
My final question, what worked in the fall is, first of all, you were all unbelievably flexible. We canned it for a week when we thought, okay, we're starting remote. And then we re-met and started it back up. And a lot of what worked, I think, was the skills and the fitness that practices initially weren't tackling in full contact in football. It was running drills and lifting weights and things. Is that how I understand December is designed?
That per the NHIA, we can start doing that on the 30th. So I heard Jim talking about some special meeting. If we could get that approved, that we could start to ramp up, I think it'd be very beneficial rather than waiting till the 7th. But that's a request. I don't know if that's possible. And then starting on the 14th, that's going to be a traditional tryout period. Again, no scrimmaging, won't be any scrimmaging of any kind right up until the 23rd when we have that lockdown period.
Great.
And then we're going to have to ramp up after the holiday. We've got another 12 days to get ready to play.
And during that time, students will be masked, yes? Like I think specifically to the wrestling mask issues, but we won't be doing anything with our wrestling program that would make them need to take the masks off in this December time? I know maybe you can't answer it, but that will be...
Specifically, basketball masked all the time. Hockey, they're masked when they walk in. And actually hockey, if you look in the packet, there's been some engineering around this now that they've come up with a mask that fits onto the face mask that's pretty comfortable. And we have one for each kid in girls program and the boys program. So they'll be wearing them all the time. Wrestlers will be drilling and practicing exclusively with mask. And again, to be completely transparent, we haven't decided if it's safe for them to wrestle a match where things are not controllable. For instance, if you and I are drilling, and I get involved with your mask, we can just stop. Right? Or if it gets over your eyes.
Right.
Or something
pulled
like,
off.
Right.
Yeah.
But in a match that may or may not be practicable, where there are some folks that are working on some things to go in conjunction with the headgear, but no guarantees at this point.
So I went skydiving this summer, and we had this thing that you pulled over and wrapped all around. It didn't move, so maybe that can be incorporated in wrestling. I'll show you a picture later. Anyway, okay, that's all that I have. I wanted to ask, those are some sports-specific questions from parents. I'll take some questions from board members now. So I see David Parker, I see your hand up. What would you like to say, David?
I think that like any of the decisions, I was very pleased to receive the packages that were outlined by the different sports in terms of how they were addressing the safety of the students and athletes. I would also, so I am definitely in favor of allowing kids to compete in sports. And I do think that from a mental health perspective, that this is a very trying time for anyone with seasonal affective disorder or depression, et cetera, and we know that athletics can help to at least take some of that edge off, particularly when we're dealing with the distance learning, remote learning, or even hybrid, where we're just not having a lot of contact, because we don't need to have contact in sports, but we can at least get out and run and exercise and compete. And I think that's going to be really important moving forward. Again, I stress that the different disciplines, the different sports created conditions to compete safely. I think they've demonstrated in the fall that they could do it without incident. And so I really think it's important that they have athletics. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom.
So, Mr. Mello, congratulations on a successful fall season to you, your coaches, your kids involved, and all of the co-curricular folks as well. It's pretty amazing. And if we can do a repeat performance, that'd be terrific. Some of the answers to these questions I already know, but I'm going to say it for the public's possibility, and some of the things that are in here I haven't seen yet, so if I ask something that's already in here, I ask your forgiveness. Specifically, the one that I've been getting a lot is, and trust me, I've had a couple of letters from this school, and I want it to happen. I understand every bit of the 7 points that Mr. Reardon brought up. But I do have to ask, specific to wrestling, that's the one that everybody who comes up and asks me anything, I say, well, how in the heck are they going to do wrestling? Can you just expand a little bit about how specifically wrestling is going to be done? I know you touched on it a little bit, but sure. I've got a few more, so don't go away after that.
Sure. And anything I can't answer, my guys are right behind me. Specifically, smaller groups, there is appropriate spacing within the wrestling room. We're going to have practice partners. So Barb and I are regular practice partners. We're not going to come in contact with Kathleen and Donna. We could try to isolate it that way. We actually have, in the packet, you see those little circles? Those are on the practice mats, and they actually have names associated with them. They've already filled them in to try to keep the cohorts smaller. How can you wrestle? Well, you wrestle the same. If Barb and I wrestle and neither one of us have the virus, when we're done wrestling, neither one of us is going to have the virus. So all these other steps that we take prior to, and I didn't mention it cavalierly about partnering with families. Families have got to do the right things. Our kids have got to do the right things when they leave practice, and they've been very committed to it. Is there a level of, risk? Absolutely. There always has been. There is now. But those that are inclined to support, that want to wrestle, they understand what they're signing up for. And like Mike said, if there's any problem at all, we're going to address it.
So a lot of the trust has to come from the other side as well. Not with your family of wrestlers that you're using in practice, but your opponents from other towns.
Correct. And we meet weekly with athletic directors from throughout the state. Everybody is like-minded. Everybody has a similar plan. And to be perfectly honest, when it comes to the wrestling plan, they're going to copy ours because ours is the best. Another thing about wrestling is we go to wrestle Timberlane, and again, I wrestle Barb. She's the only person I'm coming in contact with in that whole town. Like for soccer, for instance, you could come in contact with 11 to 15 players.
Gotcha.
So you can make arguments both ways.
Of course.
I mean, is it safe? No, it's never been totally safe. But is it controlled as it can be? The people that sign up to wrestle know exactly the way it's going to go? Yes. And that I would say also that's contrary to public opinion, that's the cleanest group we have. They, as a sport, they deal with germs and skin things all the time. For instance, the mats are cleaned before practice, the mats are cleaned after practice daily. Those kids shower, religiously because they have to as part of their sport. Coach Manelli, you want to?
Hi, it's Hia Manel. I'm the Concord High School teacher and the head wrestling coach. So I just want to start off by, that was awesome. Thank you, Mike. That was a great opening statement. I think he covered so many things so well. I want to thank Steve Mello for guiding us through the fall. He was awesome, and Scotty Owen too at the middle school. They did an outstanding job. These guys are all stars, killing it. When it comes to wrestling, we've come up with a great plan. I mean, it is what it is. It's a contact sport. It's close contact. But we're going to wear masks. We're going to screen them coming in. We're going to talk to them. We do this. We're kind of on this anyways because a flu, it decimates our team and it spreads quickly in our team forever. So we've always been like this. We've always been very careful with the kids, not just because we care very much about them, but it also will be detrimental to our final outcome. So they'll come in, they'll be screened, they'll have a group of 4 kids that they'll work out with the entire season. And why 4? Because if one person's breaks their ankle, right, then the kid has nobody else to work out with for the remainder of the season. So we came up with a group of 4. And that means that they're the only group that's going to work out together the entire time, the whole season. I believe we're only wrestling once a week, 1 dual meet a week. It's been talked about. I think that's what it is. I'm not exactly sure. That means they're going to come into contact with 1 opponent a week. Now it's close contact, but it's much less than I want all the winter sports to go. So I'm not bashing anybody, but if you're playing, basketball or hockey or any of those team sports where you're hitting and checking or guarding somebody, you're going to come up with a lot of different people. And I think they're going to be great. They're going to be fine. They got a great plan, and they're going to be doing awesome. But our guys are going to come in contact with 1 person a week from another team. That's it. We've gotten rid of all the tournaments. We've gotten rid of all the quad matches. It is, it's not what these guys have trained for 15 years. I know these kids since they were little boys. A lot of them came to camp since they were little guys. And, they've been dreaming to, be a state champ and get on the wall. And we just don't have that. It's not going to be that this year, but it's going to be something, hopefully, if you guys, allow it. They're great kids. I believe in the mental health aspect of it. They need it. A lot of some kids come to my program and they don't need me. They just want to be a state champ. A lot of kids come to the program and they want to be part of a family, part of a brotherhood. And we provide that. And I think the kids are going to be here. They want to be here. I think it's so important. And again, we'll do it until we can't do it. Right? It's not, you're not making a decision and then you're stuck with it. If you don't like it, you end it. Just give us an opportunity. That's all we're asking for. Give us an opportunity to prove you right that we can do this thing. If you don't like it, you can end it anytime you want. You guys are in charge. But again, if you have any more questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I just have a couple more for Steve. Yep. But if anyone has one for you, that we should probably.
I could just address the schedule a little bit. Generally, you guys wrestle probably upwards of 30 times a year. Those are huge tournaments in Lowell. For those of you that don't know, Concord Wrestling, like most of our programs, along with hockey, basketball, wrestles at a very high level. So a lot of times we had to go out and find people that were of our caliber. So as Ham mentioned, we're planning on 1 duel a week. We're trying to arrange the schedule so that, for instance, we have a Bedford week. We're going to just have Bedford throughout the whole week to try to limit the cohort. So we've actually thought about it on that level, Tom, as well, as far as trusting your partners. With regards to basketball and hockey, generally it's an 18-game regular season. It's probably going to look more like 12. in a condensed season.
Okay. So with hockey, as long as you've mentioned it, I've seen the full face mask with the vents on the bottom. Is that what we're looking at?
Actually, if you look in the packet, there's a picture of that is one of the options that is out there available. The one that seems to be more safer is the black CCM engineered piece that fits over your nose. It fits inside and attaches. There is a picture of it in there.
Okay.
They were $20 a piece. We have one for each girl and each boy.
We have one for JVs as well?
We're not sure if the JVs are going to be able to convene. We're waiting to hear about the availability of that program that we were in on Sunday nights, which was fantastic. One of the complications this year for us is that St. Paul's is not going to be available for our girls program. So they're going to have to jump in at Everett. For those that don't know, the girls traditionally have practiced at St. Paul's. So that's not available, so we got to split that time up between the girls and boys, obviously equitably. So the time for the JV program is going to be tough. We're still trying to figure out how we can help those kids, but it's going to be a little less probably than it was the previous couple of years.
And finally, and thankfully, I'm sure people are thinking, locker room space, just briefly talk about that for parents out there who are, or citizens who are listening.
Yep, so locker rooms are, in the safer at home guidance. It's in there. I mean, it's a spot that you don't want to be. So for basketball and hockey, as much as possible, they're going to come as dressed as they can be. For instance, hockey players are basically going to come in for practice, put on their skates, and jump on the ice. Everett Arena has a very strict protocol. For instance, you cannot be there. So as Ham mentioned, everything's different. So part of being a hockey player, especially the boys, they get there early, they hang around, they take them an hour to get dressed, they listen to music, they throw tape balls at each other, and it's all part of their experience. That's not available this year. This year we're just going to get to play. And so they're going to come ready, they're going to hop on the ice, they're screened at the door. You have to have a code to get in, you have to indicate that you don't have symptoms, etc. You haven't traveled outside the New England states. It's on your phone. You can get it scanned in, and they take your temperature right there at the rink. So every other program, basketball, for instance, it says right in there for practice, they're going to come, with some warmer clothes on the outside, and they're going to have their practice stuff underneath, and they're going to go play.
Thank you very much. You've answered everything that I have. Thank you.
Gina. Oh, and then Liza. I'm sorry.
So I had two quick questions. One was, it is the plan that if there is transmission within the team, then that particular sport will, at minimum, suspend. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've developed a process through the fall that involves the Concord High nurses. And for those of you that don't know, they're absolute superstars, as well as the Runlet nurses. They've directed the tracing and so forth, and the connection to the DHHS. So yeah, we handle it the same way it would if it was in an English class. And again, this fall we paused a couple of days where we took days off because we just needed more time. Obviously, we would do that, and we will take whatever the recommendation is from the medical professionals. We will do what they tell us. Yeah.
And then I had one more quick question. I want to be supportive of this, but I also want to make sure that families who choose not to participate this year, they will not in any way be handicapped, say, for next year. Is that correct?
It's totally correct. Absolutely. We're not into handicapping anybody. We want to help all of our kids. It's what we do, and we try to be as flexible as we possibly can.
Well, I'm just saying that, someone may not move up from JV or whatever if they don't have experience.
No. Yeah, I understand. I
don't want this to be held back because their parents said, not this year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They show up next year, and they will be judged on their merits. That we guarantee that every year. But certainly this year, the flexibility piece is much more to the forefront, and we're much more flexible is the word.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. Liza.
Thanks. And thanks for this great packet. It answers a lot of the questions that I had, so many of which were related to the fact that, yes, we had a successful fall season, but almost all the fall sports were outside. And I think the added challenge of indoor sports makes me nervous, but this kind of takes care of a lot of it. I just want to emphasize to the students and the coaches and the families that, you know, yes, these teams are little families, and we have to keep each other safe. When Mr. Reardon described seeing a bunch of people, students playing basketball and people watching that basketball, and none of them wearing masks, that is reckless behavior right now. We can't force people to do what we want them to do when they're outside of school or outside of practice or gameplay. We can strongly encourage people to not gather outside of those situations that we have control over. We're never going to get out of this loop if we don't start being smart about consistent use of masks, worn in the proper way, and not gathering when we don't need to gather. I mean, look at this giant room. It fits hundreds of people in normal times. It looks crowded to me right now. There's people like sitting only 6 feet apart, and it's freaking me out. I think we just need to recognize that this year is weird. It's really weird, and we just all have to be extra super duper careful so that next year we can be normal. Thank you. I just felt like I had to say that.
And thank you for that. And just one point that hasn't come up is spectators. In the fall, we allowed 3 tickets per rostered student. So, for instance, basketball, if there are 12 kids on the team, there's 36 people in the gym, which holds over 2,000 people. Hockey, there's going to be 20 kids on the team, approximately 60 people. Dunk, how many people can fit in the Everett Arena? 1,500. So the atmosphere is not what the kids are used to, but it's pretty safe. I mean, for a volleyball game, and Elizabeth can speak to this, 2 or 3 parents. We're not, as a group, Tom, working together, Division I is not allowing any away fans, of which a lot of our parents didn't care for that when they couldn't go to another school to watch their child. But, at some point it's about the kids. It's not about the adults. So giving them an opportunity to play is our focus. So that just gets rid of one layer. So if that makes you feel any better, all those folks will be screened at the door, just like they do when they come into school. Same thing at the arena, and they will be masked throughout the whole event, and they'll have plenty of room to socially distance in there. Yep.
My name's Scott Owen. I am the athletic facilitator at Runlet. And just to echo off that, every single thing in this packet is different between each sport and between each school. At Runlet, when we did volleyball in the fall, our gym capacity with people 6 feet apart only allowed us to have 2 spectators per person. So even our rules within the same sport between different schools were spectator-wise different based on what our gym can fit seating-wise. So we had little X's on the bleachers, and that's where people sat. And so just to echo that it's just different even between each sport and between each school and how we managed it. But we were always thinking about safety and how to mitigate any of the things that could possibly happen. So,
Mr. Richards.
Thank you. I did have other questions, but Mr. Mello answered them. I was on asked about spectators. As a father of 2 athletes, I certainly appreciate the sentiments that Mr. Reardon said. I fully understand those, and I appreciate them, and I thank him for that. The committee members received packets of information, and we've referred to it several times. Will that be available online for our parents to read prior to the time that we vote? I just think I want to get all the information we possibly can out. It is a very thick, comprehensive bracket, and I appreciate that, and I thank you for all the work that went into that. I know you worked very, very hard on that. And I also recognize the integrity of our athletes. They're committed to discipline, and they hold each other accountable, I know that, and that they will be responsible to make sure that the items that Ms. Poinier pointed out, that the responsibility that they have to their team and to their fellow athletes is something that I think will always be foremost in their mind, and I have great confidence in that discipline. So if we could just get that packet to where people can read it, it would be on our website, I suppose. Superintendent, is there a plan for us to put that on there in the very near future?
Yes.
Okay, so her response was yes. She didn't have her microphone. So, you know, parents who are concerned and interested can take a look at it at that point. So that's all I had. Thank you, Barb.
Thank you, Jim. I wanted to piggyback a little bit as well. You know, my daughters were big into dance, and so when you're a dance mom, you become a lot of things you never pictured that you would be, but there are lots and lots of aspects to a dance competition that it isn't about what I want, it's about what the competition says. So I would encourage parents, and I don't even think I need to do it. If you're a wrestling mom or dad, or a hockey mom or dad, or a basketball, whatever your sport your child plays, the commitment in your family is to take the extra step to be safe, because you're sending your child into an arena or a pool or a track or whatever in a situation that could put people at risk. And I think that isn't even something we need to ask. Having been in Concord for a long time, we have pretty dedicated families, and but that, you know, that in a much bigger way than going to bed on time or not missing practice for a job or all the things that we remember fighting about as coaches, parents have to really commit to taking that extra step outside of the school day to keep their kids healthy and unexposed. And that's, you know, it's tricky. It's not my job to manage somebody's family, but when that family impacts an entire sports team, suddenly it's a very different ball game. So I appreciate you bringing it up, and you too. Yep, go.
Can I add one more question that didn't get answered, and that has to do with our competition. Some of the issues that we saw, not here so much, but in other sports throughout the country and all, were involved when they were competing with teams that were from far away, you know, in some other states even. Is there a plan with regards to, can you describe, you know, who will we be competing against in our various sports?
That's a great question. So in the fall, it worked out pretty well. We stayed within 20-25-minute ride. Central, Memorial, Bedford, Goffstown, Trinity, I believe. In the winter, it's not that easy. And one of our problems is we're really good at a lot of things. And I apologize for being so good, but for instance, it wouldn't be in anybody's benefit for our boys hockey team to play Central and Memorial, because it would be not a great experience for them, not a great experience for us. So in basketball, we're going to follow that same plan. Everybody has a good basketball team, and that's going to match up fine. Wrestling, the same way. In wrestling, many of those teams that were close from the fall don't even have a full squad. You know, we're going to have upwards of 30 wrestlers, and we can fill every weight class. So it's not a great experience if you're the 112 and they don't have one. So one of the ways we're scheduling in wrestling is to make sure that the other team has a full squad. So we're going to try to keep it as local as we can. But I think what we saw in the fall a lot, and you learn as you go, right? I'm in a very different place today than I was in September, August, whenever that meeting was. I've learned so many things. It's not so much where you are, it's who you're with. So with that trust that Tom mentioned, that we're all of us athletic directors are working, they're doing the same things that we're doing. We have to trust they're all going to screen their kids. For instance, when we arrive anywhere, we have to certify that all of our people have been screened. Same thing when they come here. So these are other things that are coming up that I didn't address, but every safety aspect that you can imagine. We try to keep it as local as we can. And the schedule will be much more limited than it is normally.
Can you talk about transportation to those locations in that case?
Yeah, I mean, the bus people, Terry Karate and Gary Ford, they have strict rules about how many kids on a bus. For instance, traditionally, the JV and the varsity team would go together. In the fall, we found we had to have 2 separate buses. We also allow parents to take their kids to and from games, and we actually encourage it. That's something we did when it seemed to make sense, but it wasn't. Barb knows as a coach, she would like all the team to be together. So we have kids from the fall that never rode a bus. Their parents took them to and from, and that made them feel more comfortable, flexible, no problem. We don't allow kids to drive themselves for obvious reasons, just because I wouldn't be able to sleep. But as far as transportation goes, we follow, our transportation department has been tremendous with regards to remote kids not being in school. Gary Ford was able to design some bus routes on the way in when they were coming to pick up students that were here, picked up spots in neighborhoods and brought kids to practice. I mean, those are the kids that really need to be here, that don't have transportation and so forth. So transportation department has really worked well with us.
Okay. And then the final thing I would say with regards to that competition is, and it may seem obvious, but for the sake of parents who may be watching, if there would be a COVID sort of situation in the other school, we would of course either cancel or postpone that event.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, and it happened throughout the fall. If you followed the tournament, it didn't happen to us, but Lebanon last week had to forfeit a semifinal football game. They did it because they did the right thing and they wanted to not endanger anybody else. Exeter, same way. There were several soccer games and playoff games that weren't played. We all have an obligation to each other. Barb mentioned community of our city, but our community as a state as well. We got to take care of each other, and we rely on our partners to do all the same things we are.
And then I just want to recognize that in the spring, we had some teams who sacrificed and didn't get to do some of the things that they did, and we're exceptionally proud of them for taking making the right decision and doing it so graciously.
Okay. If there are any other board members that have questions, now is your last chance, because I'd like to listen to some of the people that took the time to come. And I'm especially interested in aspects that we have not yet covered, or reasons for supporting this or not supporting it that are important to you. So I'm going to start here. So if you would like to speak, you can stand up, come down this way. The microphone will be here. You only need to speak for 3 or 4 minutes. We have a 5-minute time cap so that everyone who wants to speak can. And that's sort of the purpose of these meetings. I'm just really excited to see actual people as opposed to faces on a screen or voices in my ear. This is wonderful. So if somebody would like to be the first one to speak, now is your chance. Coaches, that's for you too. We haven't heard anything much about hockey or... Great, Scotty. Before you speak, state your name and your sort of affiliation, what you're speaking about.
Scott Owen. I teach phys ed at Runlet Middle School. I'm the varsity baseball coach, and I'm in charge of sports. I oversee sports at Runlet. Live in the community. Went to Concord High School. And I just want to speak from each of my roles, I guess. I was one of those coaches that lost my spring, being a baseball coach. I had kids, 2 seniors that didn't get to play in their final year. I look ahead. We just did a signing of one of our players who's going to go to the University of Hartford to play baseball. He didn't get to play varsity. He didn't get to play varsity as a junior. He was on JV as a sophomore. If we don't play this spring, he could go to college and never have played varsity baseball at Concord High School, and that does something to my heart that is hard to put into words. We had a great fall. It was a tremendous amount of work from everybody. And I think that we owe it to the kids in our community to give them a chance in the spring. And there was a lot of people that doubted us in the fall, and I think we doubted ourselves at times, to be quite honest with you. We don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you what's going to happen tomorrow. That's the biggest thing I've learned from all this, is that I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but I know a lot of these people in this room, and I know a lot of these kids, and I think as a community, we owe it to them to give them a chance. And I don't know where that's going to take us, but I think that that's important for them to get that opportunity. So, thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Bill McDougall, and I'm the assistant hockey coach for the boys team here. In the fall, I also coach for Concord Youth Hockey. So some of the measures that have been put into action at the Everett Arena that Steve has mentioned, they've been at the forefront. I think we mentioned Concord leads the way. Ice hockey recently got some attention at the state level that I'm sure you're all aware of. They consulted with the Concord Arena, or the Everett Arena, on best practices, guidelines, policies, what's working. The reason being, we've completed our fall season now, which consists of a number of Concord High and Concord High varsity players. We had over 400 people, teachers, students, coaches, over 400 athletes, and we had 0 positive tests, starting in September all the way to today. So these guidelines that are in place are firm. We also have NHIAA guidelines. We have Concord High School guidelines. You may wonder, how are all these kids going, how are they going to balance this? We did it in the fall because we have USA Hockey guidelines. We have Everett Arena guidelines. We have Concord Youth Hockey guidelines. The moral of the story, these kids will do whatever it takes to do this. They want to do it in a safe manner. We explained at the beginning of the season how important this is going to be for these kids to follow the guidelines and what the consequences would be for not following these guidelines. We had minimal cases as far as potential exposure outside of the arena, which is, maybe their parents at work, or it was at school, a fellow classmate. And the kids were honest and forthright with us as coaches to come and say, hey, coach, I have to quarantine for 14 days because I had a potential exposure with someone else. I didn't know that, certainly. I don't know who they're in contact on a day-to-day basis. That talks to the integrity of these kids and how badly they want this to happen. It truly, truly means a lot to them, especially in this is one of their few outlets. They can't go out into the world the way they used to be able to do and see their friends and go to the movies and do whatever they used to do. So this team in the fall was one of their few outlets, and they were willing to sacrifice that for 2 weeks on their own accord because they knew that if they didn't do that and something were to happen, it could jeopardize their winter season. So it really, really means a lot to these kids, and they're willing to do whatever it takes, whatever guidelines you lay out. They just want a chance to make it happen, and I appreciate you guys listening to me today.
Bill, I know that hockey took a hit all fall. It was in the news all the time. Hockey's canceled. We're closing down the arenas. What I've seen from it, from this perspective, is they've taken a situation and learned from it, creating guards and face masks and things. How have you, and Dunk, you could probably comment on this as well. So now you've got a group of kids that are in the hot seat. Their sport's been, bashed pretty publicly in the news. So do you see that this has been a learning experience, like for your families and kids? Like, do they just talk a teeny bit about that for me?
Yeah, and absolutely. And I think we had, for the team that I coach here in Concord, a little over half of the returning varsity players. It wasn't specific to us or the Concord Youth Hockey program. So it was a little unfair. We maybe felt attacked because we were saying, hey, we're doing everything the right way, and this is what we're supposed to do. And, it's kind of we're kind of taking it on the chin, and we didn't really do anything. So there were other arenas in the state that maybe weren't playing it as tight to the vest as the folks at the Everett Arena are. Right. They learned very quickly that that's not going to fly. Yeah. So when the governor is on television and your sport whether you're somebody that runs an arena and it's a private arena and now you're shut down and you don't have people on the ice and you're not selling that ice, I think across the state, people learn very quickly that this is going to be a huge issue. This is going to be taken very seriously. You're not going to be able to skate by, shall we say. So I think that 2-week shutdown was honestly better for the chances of having a winter hockey season. It was an eye-opening across the state for all hockey people that there needs to be tight guidelines in place. Like I said, they piggybacked on Concord and what we've been able to do, and Coach Walsh works at the arena as well, so he's well aware. So I think it was an eye-opening experience for everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Peter Sargent. I'm the captain of the high school wrestling team, one of them. What I've been trying to say, like, I've pretty much wrestled for most of my life, and it's all I've really been training for is this senior year, me winning a state championship, and being with the guys. And you know, it's not like I know it's going to be a lot different, but I know all these guys back here worked very hard this off season to have it. And, you know, by any means necessary, I know they will take any sort of precaution, do anything they can to have this season. I truly believe that. And, yeah, that's all I really got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. No, come. I'm going to let this young lady speak first. She stood up first, and then if you guys don't mind, thank you. Trying to keep it all fair here.
I'm Jessica White. I'm a senior at Concord High, and I play on the girls' basketball team. I don't have a lot to say. The one thing I really want to talk about is more of like how sports affects my schoolwork personally, and I'm sure I can speak for a lot of other athletes as well. Having no sport but only school, I find it very difficult to manage my schoolwork, because in my head I know I don't have anything to do after school today, so I don't have to do this now, and I end up staying up later, and then I do worse on my tests, I do worse on my schoolwork, my grades start to struggle. But when I have a sport, I know, okay, I have this much time after school where I have to get my schoolwork done, otherwise I'm going to be up till 3 in the morning, and I'm going to be exhausted from practice and all of these things. And on top of that, when you have a team sport or any type of sport really, you have your teammates to kind of rely on. You may not be in the same classes as them or anything like that, but like younger students can go to those upperclassmen and be like, hey, I took this class, like, do you have any advice for me here, like, on how to help? And I really think having that community and having that schedule really helps keep grades up and keep that grade average up. And on top of that, being able to just like have that outlet, especially if we end up going fully remote and all of that, you have that outlet to really just be able to get out of your house, like see, even if it's a small group of people, cohorts and things like that, you have that outlet to be able to just release that stress from the school day, because some of us might be on our computer for 4 hour-and-a-half classes, and that can be a lot, especially for students now. So
That's a really good connection. I think a lot of people are that way. The more time you have, the less you get done. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you. Hi, so my name's David Bean. I'm a senior at Concord High and a 3 going on 4-year member of the Concord High wrestling team. And I can honestly say that the wrestling program is one of the best things that's ever happened to me. The family-like bond that's shared between teammates is unmatched by any other sport. Whether you're a first-year freshman or a 4th-year senior, you're equally respected and included in all aspects of the program. Nobody's left out. The coaches do a tremendous job not only coaching you as a wrestler, but being there for you in all aspects of your high school career, as well as life after high school. As a freshman with no prior wrestling experience, I decided to join the team. While at first the physical demand was not something I was used to, I quickly began to realize that I was really enjoying it and would look forward to it from the moment I woke up. Despite the fact I had no special talent my freshman year, the encouragement and respect I got from my teammates and coaches made it worth staying. Even kids that come out with no prior experience get the opportunity to participate and compete, which isn't true for many other sports. As I continue to come back to the program, I developed relationships and memories I'll never forget. And I wanted to read a quote from a Concord Wrestling alumni who wrestled for 3 years. And at the time, through his high school years, he was dealing with a rough family life, and he claims wrestling actually saved him. And I quote, "The coaches were the only people I really had to look up to as a positive adult male role model, and I can guarantee the same goes for others on the team. Wrestling was the only thing I would look forward to and the reason I would get myself out of bed in the morning. It's truly more than a sport, it's our life." And that's the end of the quote. But I think it really shows that kids need the outlet in their lives, not only to be active, but to express themselves and be a part of something special. And the reason I came to speak is because with the situation we're in currently, I feel it's necessary not only to offer wrestling, but sports programs as a whole for kids' physical as well as mental well-being. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Hello, my name is Keith Mcfadridge. I'm a senior wrestler here at Concord High. I love this team, or so I should say family. It sounds horrifying to me that my last season here with my team could be taken away. These coaches we have are like father figures to us, and we are all brothers to each other. Hence why we are called the Brotherhood. We take so much care of one another and have so much respect for our team. We're the toughest and most hardworking program at the school. We strive every year to be champions to represent this school. I put so much blood, sweat, and tears into this program, just like every one of my teammates. We all need this team just as much as you need your job. It is my job to keep grinding for this sport and family, to bring future wrestlers to this program, and to make our school even more known. I want to make the best out of this year on this wrestling team, so doesn't everyone else here on my team. This family makes us the men we will be in time to come. Please keep my 4th and final year with this amazing team. We will prove to you how smart and safe we can be during these tough times. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm Jack Sargent. I'm a senior, and I'm one of the captains of the wrestling team alongside Peter and the boss. So I just want to say, over the past 3 years, wrestling has made a huge impact on my life. It has helped me grow as a person, teammate, and as a leader. I've learned a lot. I've learned how to work hard, how to persevere through times of failure and adversity, and most importantly, how to believe in myself. These lessons have helped me in every aspect of life, and without having the opportunity to learn these lessons, I would not be who I am today. And like these lessons are like, they apply to, like they help you in school. So like learn how to work hard and, fight through adversity in school. You learn that in sports and you can apply it to school and other aspects of your life. So I think that's important, the sports teach that stuff. So, Peter said about like, we've all worked hard for, being a state champ and all that. And, you want to be this and that, and that's individual success. And, that's what wrestling is, very individual. But like, it's great, but that's not what makes wrestling special to me. It's the team bond that is created by this program is what makes it special. It is truly a family that I would not trade for any level of individual success. Everyone has each other's backs, and everyone wants the best for each other, no matter what. The brotherhood that is created never ends. Like I talk to kids that were seniors in my freshman year. I still communicate with them, and they want the best for you no matter what. And they always cheer you on. They come to the meets, just great like that. And then, so all the coaches on the team are great role models. Like there's 4 or 5 here right now, and I really respect them as mentors. They all go out of the way to help us, no matter what's, happening in their life, they will help us. Their love and support builds you up through tough times when you're feeling down. I cannot say enough good things about them. They have all helped me become who I am today as a wrestler and a person. And so this program offers an outlet and an opportunity to everyone who joins. The family bond of the team can be an outlet to kids who may not have the best family life. You know, I can't say I have a good family life, and I'm very lucky, but not all kids are fortunate like that. So this program has made a huge impact on, you know, the people who have wrestled. Without it, many kids would struggle to have an outlet for negativity in their day. They won't have anything to hold, and also some kids won't have anything to hold them accountable and keep them out of trouble. Because, you know, that's just sometimes having a sport or having someone like that to keep them accountable and not away from bad stuff is good for them. And so I just want to say this, I'm truly proud to be a part of such a great program. I've made lifelong friendships and memories. I hope to be able to share the mat with my teammates and coaches for my senior year and make more lifelong memories and bonds. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Blinn. I'm a junior at Concord High, and I play on the girls basketball team, and I also participate in 2 other sports, and I'm a part of the NHIA statewide student leadership committee. I want to thank you for your time and leadership during these difficult times, and I want to tell you a little bit about the role that basketball plays in my life. For me, basketball is always something that I can look forward to after a long day at school. It is an outlet that allows me to forget about things weighing on my mind. As you have heard the argument before, playing sports, especially now, provides a sense of normalcy. It promotes me to live a healthy lifestyle and stay active. I thrive off of a busy schedule that requires time management, and playing sports helps me stay on track with my schoolwork. Basketball provides me with a balance of achieving high academics and staying physically fit. Basketball is also so much more than a game. The friendships and community that our program have built are unlike no other. The bonds that have been created with not only each other, but in our school and across our city really show how special the sport of basketball is in Concord. Staying safe and healthy during this time can't be looked at only through a COVID lens. Staying safe and healthy is also about improving your cardiovascular health, lowering the risk of heart disease, stroke, and diabetes. It can also help in the areas of helping managing weight loss, reducing blood pressure, improving muscular strength, controlling cholesterol, lowering the risks of certain types of cancer, and providing mental health benefits by battling anxiety and depression. Playing a sport and increasing exercise also helps strengthen our immune system and getting less sick. I truly believe that with the guidelines in place, schools can provide athletes with a safe environment to play the sport that they love. I also know that athletes will be willing to follow the different guidelines and protocols that have been put into place if it means that they will be able to have a season. I'm recently coming off of a fall sports season of playing volleyball inside. The precautions put into place by our athletic department created a safe environment for the sport to take place. From mask wearing and constant sanitizing of hands and equipment to spectator limitations, we were extremely successful with following the guidelines as an indoor sport. We knew that we could be shut down at any point if COVID case numbers appeared within our schools and teams. Each day we played and practiced with the understanding that it could be our last, while also grateful to have the chance. The fact that the board was willing to allow athletes the opportunity to play sports until that time occurred and not shut a program down before it could begin showed thoughtful leadership and proven success. I know that the same success can happen with basketball. Although the protocols would be slightly altered for the sport, athletes are more than willing to follow them, provided we will have a season. Finally, I want to leave you all with this thought. Basketball has been being played at a competitive level in the state of New Hampshire during this pandemic since July, after the competition of youth sports had been approved by the governor and tournament chains felt that it was safe enough to do so. Since then, teams from all over New England have been coming into New Hampshire to play New Hampshire teams. This competition has continued up through this past weekend, and through those 4.5 months, not one COVID case was documented. Many of these travel teams will stop their competitive play against out-of-state teams as the school season begins. However, I know that if school seasons are not approved, those travel teams will start up again, and many players will be going back to them to play those out-of-state teams. Although there were no reported cases regarding basketball throughout the summer and fall, I know that the school district could provide a safer and more controlled environment to play basketball in compared to these travel tournaments. Again, thank you for your time, and I hope that you will take these points into consideration when making your decision.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Angela Nelson, and I have 5 children in the district. I have a junior here at Concord High School who plays on the hockey team, and he is at practice tonight, so I am reading something that he sent to me today. To the Concord School Board, I've been playing the game of hockey since I was 3 years old. I have met most of my great lifelong friends from the sport, especially during my high school years at Concord High. I have learned lessons of hard work, dedication, camaraderie, and perseverance, how to win and how to lose graciously. And the last thing that I want is for the love of most of us to end so abruptly. As everyone knows here, we lost our chance to play a state championship game in March, but we want a chance to try again. We have all been together in the summer and fall, following the guidelines provided, and there have been very few hiccups. We are willing to follow each and every guideline provided just to play the sport that we all love so much. In this day and age, hockey is sometimes the only thing we get to do to see each other, so the time that we get is very important to all of us. At the end of the day, another very important part of the game for us at the high school is not only getting to play for ourselves, but to represent our entire school and the entire community. If you've ever been to a game, the whole community is behind us, and I know they will be even if they are not allowed to come to the games. I know that everyone on our team would agree when I say that the blood, sweat, and tears that we have put into this game over the years have been pretty much leading up to this moment, and we ask that you just give us a chance to play this winter. So, and as a parent, I can tell you, Colin has never been a motivated student his whole life. And when he came here to Concord High and made the varsity hockey team as a freshman, his father and I sat him down and we said, I don't care what the school rules are. I don't care what your coach's rules are. Your grades aren't at a certain level or higher, you're not playing. And he still isn't a motivated student, but he got up every day, whether he felt well or not, and went to school. Obviously that will change now, but he'd never missed a day of school. And I can't say that about when he was younger. And it was because he knew that if he didn't go to school, he couldn't go to practice, and if he didn't go to practice, he couldn't play over the weekend.
That's a huge motivator.
And I will tell you that I am very worried about him because that is the one thing that motivates him in school, and I'm worried that he won't get a chance for that this year.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you. My name is Tim Latorre. I'm the girls basketball coach at the high school. I'm also the PE teacher at Kristen McCullough School. I just want to thank our administration for the time and effort you guys have put in to put this presentation together. I also want to thank all my fellow coaches here at Concord High for the protocols you guys have created to try to put this forward. I think Mr. Mello said it best earlier when you talked about Concord being one of the best, and listening to all of our student athletes come up here and talk and listen to how much this season means to them. It's not just because we have some of the best teams, it's because we have some of the best kids. And listening to them speak about how passionate they are about their sport and about their connections with their teammates shows that they are willing to follow all the protocols necessary to make this season happen. You know, one of the reasons I got into coaching was to try to teach lifelong lessons to student athletes. It wasn't about winning games, it wasn't about winning championships. I think this is a valuable time for us as coaches to teach another life lesson to our student athletes. One thing I try to do as a coach as well is teach them how to do things the right way and let the results speak for itself. This is another example of how we can show them that if we do things the right way, the result will be that we get to play this year. The competition piece will always be in our minds, but it's going to be secondary to making sure that we are following the steps necessary to keep us safe so that we can play. And again, the result will be what it's going to be. So I just want to thank you guys for giving us the time to present this to you, and hopefully we can make it happen. All the students that came up and spoke, awesome job. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Coach. I don't see any more hands here. Mr. Dunn, do we have anyone remotely that would like to speak? And if there are athletes watching, I encourage the athletes to speak. Your words have a lot of meaning and power.
Barb, you can call on Gracie McHugh. I'll unmute her, or she can unmute herself.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Gracie McHugh, and I'm a sophomore at Concord High. I'm a very good student, and part of that is because sports help to inspire and motivate me. I'm really having a hard time being so isolated because of COVID, like a lot of kids are. This fall, being able to do cross country with Coach Allie and my amazing teammates was sometimes the only one positive part of every day. It's really hard to be online for school and not have connections with my classmates and teachers like normal, and sports are pretty much the only normal part of my life right now. If we are able to have sports this winter, I know that my teammates will all be really safe. All the kids that I know who do sports are super careful with COVID because we are all desperate to be able to do our sport and have something to do other than be online and stuck at home. I do sports that are considered safe, such as cross country and Nordic, and I definitely think you should allow the safe outdoor sports to occur this winter like Nordic. I guess I just want to say that I'm not sure how I will be able to keep doing this whole remote and isolated school and life thing without having Nordic this winter. My sports teams and my friends on cross country and Nordic are pretty much like my family, and I need to have this in my life. Thank you.
Thank you, Gracie.
So far, that's it.
Okay. So if the committee doesn't mind, I'd like to take this time to make a motion. But before I make the motion, I want to just assure with Kathleen and Jim that we could potentially have a meeting ahead of December 7th. If we need full board approval to move forward with winter sports, I feel that this is something that we shouldn't wait until the 7th for. Our athletes were really patient in the fall while we were making these decisions, and it would be nice to have a chance to vote on this ahead of December 7th.
Time, and the superintendent has the ability to schedule us, I would be willing to call a special meeting for this particular topic next week sometime, and we will work on reaching out to the board and putting out the proper notifications with regards to that. Is that okay with you, Superintendent? All right. So
that's a thumbs up, everybody.
Yeah. So Chairperson, we'd be willing to do that.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. So I'll make the motion. I'm going to move that we approve the inclusion of winter sports as outlined by our administrators, staff, and the NHIAA. Essentially, that's the motion, but I think what needs to be included in this is that we, like we do with the remote versus hybrid, that we have contingencies in place, that we give the athletic department and the administration the freedom to stop if we need to stop. Like not every move needs an approval. There are pages of guidelines here that we need to follow, and all of that's assumed in the motion. So when I'm making this motion, I'm really holding all of you accountable to doing what this says. But the overwhelming support for what athletics does for kids is important. So I'll restate it. I move that we approve the inclusion of winter sports as outlined by the administration, athletic department, and staff. Do I need to, committee members, do I need to add anything to that? I don't see. So do we have any discussion? And that would be board member discussion or committee member, either way right now. Gina? Oh, I need a second. Wait a minute.
I'll second it.
Thank you. That's David. Oh, I get so tired. Go, moved by me, second by David. Okay, now discussion. Gina.
So I don't know whether we need to modify the motion or, and don't get upset at me, Barb, to modify the motion to say, with the understanding that the administration and the athletic department have the authority to suspend or pause the particular sports as needed to respond to the ongoing COVID issues.
Actually, that really articulately expresses what I was trying to say a moment ago. I think that's an important piece to this.
Did Lyndon get it?
Pardon me?
Does Lyndon get it?
So, Lyndon, let me rephrase this for you so that the motion is complete. So the motion is that we move to approve the inclusion of winter sports as outlined by the administration and NHIAA guidelines, with the understanding that, okay, Gina, you have to help me here.
Okay, the administration and the athletic department
Yep.
have the authority to suspend or pause any particular sport in response to the COVID situation.
Nice. That's yeah. David, do you still agree to second that?
I'm not opposed to that. I think it's very, very nebulous, uncertain the way it's worded. Would be able to address, given the COVID, I think we already can. I mean, if people are more comfortable saying that, but that's just a very, I agree with the intention. The language is very, very, open-ended, and I'm not sure that's how it could be worded. The COVID situation, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, but I think
in response to COVID numbers,
I think we can't.
Still not giving them any. We're still not giving them anything precise. I think they already have that. What I'm wondering, do they already have that power to, shut things down if they get out of if the numbers spike? Or do we need to put that in there? I just don't know if we're backing ourselves into something uncertain.
I don't know that we're backing ourselves into anything uncertain, but give me a second, David. Making a motion is really hard now, these last two meetings. Yeah, absolutely. You break them quite easily.
I don't think it's on.
No.
Is it on now?
No.
Now? Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So we would follow the same protocols. If, for instance, we had a classroom, that we had a cluster of youngsters who had COVID, we'd have to close the classroom down. I mean, we have to do that if there was a cluster. I mean, the same rules apply to what we would do with the athletes. If there was a cluster in one of the sporting programs, we would be forced to shut down, review it, go through all the process with DHHS, all those things, and then decide whether it's suspended for a period of time or whether we're just going to stop it for the season. But those decisions will be made in collaboration with Steve and his coaches and, of course, Mike Reardon.
Right. And that's what we did in the fall, correct?
Right.
Right. So couldn't we just, Gina, instead of using the wording, the COVID situation, have the authority to Steve.
We're going to follow the same process that it's an English class.
Right.
We'll follow the same process and standards. We'll defer to the medical experts, and we will do whatever the recommendation of those people are.
So Gina, I'm going to simplify this a little bit and tell me if this is consistent with your modification. So I move that we approve the inclusion of winter sports as outlined by the administration, athletic department, and NHIAA, with the understanding that all protocols ensuring the safety of athletes and participants are followed as outlined in the guidelines presented.
That works.
David, will you second that?
Yeah, I'm good with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jim?
All right, Clark, you move that you recommend to the full board the approval.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Okay. I think that's what I said the first time. I move that we recommend to the full board the approval of the inclusion of winter sports as outlined by the administration, athletic department, and NHIAA, with the understanding that all protocols relevant to the safety of our children are followed as outlined in the guidelines presented. Okay, thank you, Jim. And David seconded that. So, is there any discussion committee member-wise? So that would be David or Danielle or Gina. Is there any discussion board member-wise? Okay, Tom, go for it.
So at the risk of being real picky here, how many in a cluster? I mean, really, what would it take? That was one of my questions earlier. What would it take to, what would be the low benchmark to say we're done or we have to stop?
Well, we would decide whether we either stop and end the season, or we would take a break, as you know, as Steve described, we could do that,
right.
You know, and isolate and so forth. A cluster is 2 to 3 students,
okay,
all related in a bunch.
Perfect. That's all I need. Thank
And
you.
several times this fall, games were postponed or canceled, tournaments restructured with one case on a team. It wasn't even a cluster, so. Okay, so I'm going to take a roll call vote of committee members. So that will be Gina, David, and Danielle. So Gina.
Aye.
David.
Aye.
Danielle.
Aye.
And I say aye. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will meet next week. We will meet next week as a full board to continue this conversation. Once we know when that is, we will be sure that all of you know, athletes here and at home, so that you can participate there if you would like as well. Thank you so much for coming out. It will be posted on the website. Kathleen, do we have anything else? No. Okay. Can I hear a motion to adjourn from somebody?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Danielle. Gina, will you second that?
I will.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.